dark energy from spirit cooking.
It's not the same. You're not going to feel the bass hitting you and like
whatever Elon Musk has going on.
So autism.
You know, we got this Neuralink or whatever. We got virtual experiences. We have the Apple goggles. Welcome to the Goat Show, the show where we celebrate and debate all things great. I am joined by my co-hosts, Fresh and Deezy. Gentlemen, good to see you today. I'm in a very Halloween mood, so we'll be talking a little bit about that. We have a special guest today. His name is Phil Van Kleef. He runs one of the biggest haunted experiences in all of North America. So we'll be getting into it with him in just a bit, talking about everything related to haunted attractions, how they start, how to do one, how to design one, all that good stuff. But before we do, my name is ZiLLY. I am your host. And Fresh, what do the people have to do?
You got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to hit the bell, you got to drop a comment, you got to send it to your favorite horror movie buff or horror movie enthusiast, your favorite October enthusiast.
Anyone who loves Halloween, and especially if you're someone who's always thought about, man, maybe I should make a haunted house. Maybe that looks really cool. I wonder how that all works. Well, then you definitely got to stick around and share with a friend, whoever that is, this interview with Phil Van Kleef.
Welcome to Haunt Manor. We are the harbingers of horror. This is the den of the damned, and none shall leave as they enter.
Every time.
Phil, how's it going? Good to see you. How you doing today, man?
Doing great. Yeah. Great season. Everything's going really good this year.
Perfect. All right. So let's get into it. So for anybody who doesn't know, Phil runs it's called Haunt Manor, correct?
Haunt Manor, hayrides, and haunted houses. Yep.
Gotcha. And that's in Niagara.
Yeah, Niagara Falls. We're right in between Buffalo and Toronto, so we got a huge market of people. A lot of people that come into our show. It's a great location.
Okay, great. Well, let's learn about you first, because I'm kind of curious. And the way we know you is through your brother Paul. Who I love. He's one of my favorite people. He's a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. He's part of the our sort of network here at ZGC Entertainment. And Paul has been someone that I've known. I think it's been about 10 years now, and he continuously gave me good advice, business advice.
Yeah, and
I continuously didn't listen to him, and I paid the price. So yeah. That's but he's super good, super cool dude. So it's so great to meet you, and it's so interesting. Yeah. Like you guys have similar energy. So
how'd you meet Paul?
Man, I met Paul. I don't know how much I should say. There was in LA there in LA there was like this. I mean, it's normal for LA. There's like these big mansion parties in the hills, and
oh yeah, he's told me about those. Yeah, he tells me about those.
Yeah. So he was actually at one of these big mansion parties. Nothing crazy, just. I could go into it, but it's nothing crazy. Just do with a mansion. But he was in like the I guess I don't know. Just walking by, and he was in the hot tub, and then we just started talking. And one thing, that's it. I mean, there's no Diddy.
Yeah, no Diddy party.
No Diddy. Ain't no Diddy going on. Just cool homies hanging out, and then he was he was talking about at that time he had like his vape stores and all that. So
oh yeah.
That's before all his adventures around the world. So
he's definitely an entrepreneur as well, and definitely a business person, and he loves it. And he does really good, So
yeah, we're gonna. I mean, the goal is to get him on the show pretty soon to talk about smart picks and some other things. But yeah, so that's how we know Paul. And then when we were looking at this video about haunted house business, and we'll put it in the show notes. And then he was like, oh, that my brother runs this massive thing. And we were like, what? And then it was like, that's how we're here. So but before we get into all that, I have a question for you. This is something that we ask every guest on the show. Okay, first question: if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Any superpower? I think that would be to be able to. That's a really good question.
Or any evil any evil power, any dark energy since it's Halloween?
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, I would say to just be able to, succeed in any type of business path I'm working on, because that's the challenge. I think that's what I do, and business is hard sometimes, setting up things and figuring out how to make something work, and it would just be like being able to get to the top of your game right away. Almost like Elon Musk does. It's like it seems like this guy has that superpower. He's able to whatever he does, he's like ultra successful at. You know what I mean? I think that would be a cool superpower. I would love to have whatever Elon Musk has going on.
So autism.
Dark energy from spirit cooking.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
So, well, based on that, the question that we have next is basically, what's your superhero origin story, man? How did it all, start for you? Where'd you grow up? And sort of what was your life like before all this kind of came into being?
Yeah, so I grew up on this property. It's actually an old farm estate that was on Lundy's Lane, where the War of 1812, which was between the U.S. and Canada, and it was the British loyalists and Canadians versus Americans, and they just battled it out. It was one of the bloodiest battles in history on this road, and this house was one of the hideouts for the British loyalists, and I grew up there. We found bullets in the walls. We took apart the kitchen. There were musket bullets, and there were these giant lead bullets with 3 rings. So it's got a lot of history. I have all the history. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but it's a haunted house. Basically, 1776 was the original, when they built the original part of the house there on the property. And it's got a giant barn, super haunted. So I grew up here. I grew up hearing things in the attic as I'm sleeping. Grew up hearing cupboards close. One story, we just did this documentary, and I tell it, where there's this old guy, and we call him Sam, and he's just this old dude with a beard, scary looking, and he showed up at the top of the stairs, and that was kind of one of the first moments where I saw this being, and it's one of those moments where you freeze, your whole body, you get goosebumps all over it. It's one of those things. It's like not a common thing, and it's only happened. It happened about, I would say, it doesn't happen all the time, but there are more common experiences, footsteps. So we have a giant barn. We actually run escape rooms out of it, and we run one of our haunted houses in it. And every time we go to close up around 10:30 at night, we hear kids running around. We're like, oh, somebody broke into the haunted house. So we get the staff go up each end of the staircases and try to catch these guys. And we can never find them.
That's interesting, man. Okay. Because, yeah, I think Paul's mentioned that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up here. We had a rock band that filmed a music video probably last Halloween season. And I was telling them these stories as well. And they're like, yeah. They're all big guys, got long hair. And the next day I check up on them. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they came up to me and they were like, there was a little girl in the staircase. Who's that little girl? There's like, I was going up and I thought it was my buddy. And then I saw this thing go by me, and they were filming till like 2-3 in the morning. And I told them, I was like, after 11, weird things happen. And they went up to the 3rd floor of this barn, which is the most haunted area. And they heard it and they saw it. And these are grown guys that look super skeptical about it. Didn't look like they believed in the stuff. They were telling me stories the next day. I was like, you guys are just messing with me. I was like, I don't believe that you guys had this happen. There's no way. And then this guy came up. He was like, no, I'm the producer of this thing. It happened. And this is, we heard a little girl's voice, and it was up that back staircase. So yeah, we got a lot of wild things. A lot of wild things like that happen with the actors. I have to replace actors up on that 3rd floor. Sometimes one year it was 3 times in a row I had to replace all the actors because they were getting sick. Weird things were happening. They were seeing a little girl and a little boy at the end of the hallway every now and then.
Wow.
When they were trying to scare guests. Yeah. They were trying to scare guests, and then they had these things popping up, and then they go to see who it is, and then there's nothing there, and then they just the actors get sick after that, and then.
Did you get used to these hauntings? I mean, did you? I mean, how young was the first time that you experienced one of these hauntings?
So that incident I told you with Sam. So I was 8 years old. That was the earliest I remember, and I was in the house. My mom was in the store, which is about 200 feet away, locking up. It was just me and her that night, and the house is dark. I think it closed at like 11, and I just go down the stairs to see what's going on, where she is. House is dim and dark, and I go back up the stairs. I look up at the top of the stairs, like I felt like somebody was up there. And I just see this person looking down at me. It was like an old guy with a beard. He just looks at me like that. And then he like turns like this, and he just like went through a doorway, just went into it. And it was like this is the first time I've seen something that was clear. Normally I've seen other things. I've seen something scarier, but this was the most clear image I've seen on the property.
I mean, do you mind talking about what the scariest experience was?
Yeah. Before, I'd say a couple years before I did Haunt Manor, I had a skate park in the barn up on the second floor. It's a 3-story barn.
Right. Paul told me about that. Okay.
Yeah. I had the whole thing. I transformed it into this skate park, like Street League, Rob Dyrdek, style skate park up there. So I'm up there, I'm learning a new trick. It's 2 a.m. and I do this like every night. And then one night I'm skating, and I felt like somebody was in the barn, and it's like 100 feet from one end to the other. I'm on one side. I look over at the entrance. I'm like, who's here? And I just see this giant black blob. It looked like a rain cloud that had like this. It actually looked like it had a little tail, or like a streaming tail coming off one side. And it looked like it was just watching me or looking at me. It's just dark, scraggly sort of thing. And I just paused. I froze as I saw this thing, and it just went woof right through the wall, like right where the doorway was, like it walked through the doorway, and I froze. I was like in my 20s, I think, 22, I think. So like stuff doesn't scare me, and I'm skating at 2 a.m. on my own, learning a trick here. And after that, I was just like, I never went up there after 11 again. I was like, that was it. I've heard this little girl too. This little girl. Yeah. I've got stories, like there are things that have happened that are weird.
Have you tried to like draw them out?
Draw pictures of them?
No, I mean,
draw them out. Draw them out. We get paranormal. Yeah. Like our Haunt Manor staff do things like that. I don't do that specifically. We do have staff that have come in and draw them out, and we do have the guys that have the little boxes and the noisemakers and things like detectors, and they put cameras in all the rooms. So we've had that happen. We've done that numerous times, and they find stuff all the time. The barn's one of the most haunted areas. We've got these guys out of Pittsburgh, I think, Pennsylvania, and they're pretty popular. They got like a podcast as well. They got The Walking Dead, somebody from The Walking Dead. And we were going to do an event with them actually in November. We had it all scheduled out. And they came and they did an initial reading. They checked out and they were like, yeah, this place is legit.
That's fascinating, man. I mean, well, let me ask you this then. If you're having real hauntings and all this stuff, when it comes to actual Halloween and these types of things, is that kind of, does it desensitize you to things around about Halloween or things like that growing up?
Oh yeah. I've got pretty thick skin with this stuff because I've been growing up with it. My wife's heard the stuff as well, and she's been there alone, where she's heard like footsteps, cupboards closing. I'm definitely. You mean like doing horror and everything like that?
Yeah. Because I have to imagine that to be interested in doing the manor, that growing up maybe you had an interest and fascination with the things with things that are more on the ghosts and I don't know, the occult or horror or whatever.
It's definitely inspired it. Yeah, like our houses are all based around this story. That's why it's called Haunt Manor. The actual story of Haunt Manor is based off of this, if you look at the house itself, you'll see on my Instagram a couple pictures here and there I post. But there's this one where I was closing the house, the haunted houses. It's 1 a.m, and I got my truck parked right in front of the house. I'm about to leave. I look up in the attic of the house, and I'm like, oh, somebody left the light on. I look up, and I see it looks like a lady and 2 little kids just standing there, like lit up, just staring at me. I'm like, what? This is what I said. I'm like, what? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and my body is just like goosebumps. And the first thing I'm looking, and I grab my cell phone and I go, snap. I'm like, and then I'm just like, no one will ever believe this. Snap. And I got the photo, and it's on Instagram. We just had a couple shows. Some guys posted it up, but it looks, if you zoom in it, you can look and try to see if it's pixelated or photoshopped. It's not photoshopped at all. It's just me snapping that shot.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I seen a video on your YouTube. It's like 15 seconds long or something.
Yeah.
And something walks by.
Yeah.
Is that real or is that
in the barn?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is edited. That specific one. Yeah. I've been telling people that because, like, to me now this year, I'm like, that specific one is not. I had a PR company that staged that, and we're like, hey, we gotta like, we want to stage something, set something up. I'm like, we don't need to. We got enough stuff here. But they're like, let's just do it. That one is. But that is in the barn. That one's done in broad daylight. You can see there's a lot of sun coming in and everything like that.
Yeah. Hey man, listen, to me, that makes it more real because it's like, sure, we played around and we did some shit, but we tell you this one's not real. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That one is. And I that's the only one I've, and I was like, that's the thing. I'm not doing that. That's not something I'm into. I don't need to. We have enough. You can come to the property right now, anybody, and walk in that barn, sit up there from 11 o'clock on with the darkness, and you'll hear stuff. You'll see stuff. I don't need to sell anybody on it. It's a real thing. We have, there's hundreds of people that have seen it now. Like our staff, we have 120 staff. And we get, sometimes we get 60 new staff every year. So we've had hundreds of people that have seen and experienced it, heard it. We've got a documentary right now on YouTube. I'm going to post it up, and you can actually see and hear some of the stories from the staff telling legit their experiences.
Dang, man, I need to make a trek up there. I don't know if I could. I get squeamish in horror movies, man. So I don't know if I could do that.
Hey, listen, I'm in Toronto, bro. I'm gonna make the trip one of these days.
Oh, you're in Toronto? Really? Yeah, we get a ton of people from Toronto come to us on the weekends, Saturdays. It's massive. A lot of people are going from Wonderland, and they're coming to Haunt Manor now. They got the Halloween haunt, but this is what we do. You know what I mean? It's like theme parks are good, but
I like my experiences are more with things like screamers, and like I went when I was a kid. I kicked
they touch
one
you.
of the I kicked one of the guys in the face.
They touch you. That's why probably.
Yeah, he was like a little midget guy, and he was in the fireplace, and he came out, and he like had these knives, and he was banging them on the floor and walking towards me, and it scared the shit out of me. And my fight or flight kicked in, and I didn't run. I kicked him, and then I got kicked out.
That happens. You get punched all the time in the haunted house industry. I've been punched I got double fisted, like someone went bang like that, boom, uppercut on the hayride. I used to act, because I would show the staff how to act and how to scare people. And one time I had a mask on, and they just went bang. But it was that's majority of the scares like that are that, like you said.
Yeah.
Somebody's freaking out, and it's not intentional. Or you get somebody trying to protect their girlfriend, and then they'll swing.
Yeah. Well, and then and he. So what made me kick him is the knife thing hit my foot.
Oh,
so when he touched my foot with it, I was like, "Ooh," like, you know what I mean? Because it got me a little too much. Because I was already like, "Whoa!" And then it touched me, and it's like, no, man, we can't.
So the haunted house industry, you're not supposed to touch. It's one of the things. Like if you're part of the industry you don't touch, because it introduces a lot of problems and potential liabilities and things like that can come up. So you just tell people you don't. But what we do is we get as close as physically possible, like get our actors so you can breathe down their neck, you can get close, but never touch. If they bump into you, it's okay, but you can get as close as you want. Make as, you can be making gargling sounds, werewolf sounds. You can be drooling, whatever. All these things will really get to people. And
listen for the girls to say that, or listen for the boyfriends to say their girls' names. So
yeah, that's the best. No, that's the best way. If you get a name, you pass that name to like if you're taking your girl through the house, you just let one of the actors know, and if you get it to the right actor, they'll pass it through that house, and all of a sudden you'll get that whole house saying your girlfriend's name. It's freaky. It works really good. So that is one little trick. We had this one thing. It was like a giant sponge, but it looked like a big cow tongue. We called it the cow tongue, and we had a wet bucket. And as people would walk through this dark part of the haunted house, they would dip it in this bucket, and they would just kind of slide this cow tongue across the back of your neck as you went by. And people would just like, what the fuck? What the fuck was that?
What the
and
fuck
they would
just licked me?
Yeah, they would think some sort of thing just like licked their neck. And that was a funny one. We had to stop doing that because, like, you always get, I guess, going into like health code standards and things, of that nature. So it's challenging. We've got a lot of stuff. We've got like zip lines that go over a hayride with a chainsaw coming right over your head. We've got people that rappel down at you out of the trees. Got a 30-foot fireball. We've got a giant plane there that's crashed. It's on fire. So yeah, it's. Are
any of those videos in the haunted houses that have gone viral? Any of those at your haunted house?
Any of the viral videos? Like the ones on TikTok right now?
Yeah.
I don't
like those black and white ones.
No, but I've posted some that have taken off, but I wouldn't say nothing that's gone up to like 2-3 million. I don't really know how to get the, get videos that do the 2-3 million hits thing. But I mean,
where you need to hit up Paul. He knows.
Yeah. I do have like, we market a lot. We promote a lot on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, but we are hitting like 3 million impressions to 4 million impressions just in the month of October. So we are getting like, we're hitting that whole Toronto market up to the Gardner Expressway, CN Tower area, all the way back around Mississauga. So into Buffalo. So we get a lot of traffic. Like we had over 2,000 people. What was it? Like the past Saturday weekend, it was packed, just like massive lines. But you move through our haunted house pretty well.
I want to kind of go back a little bit because I mean this is all incredible, and it's like I gotta go, man. Maybe I gotta fly up there. Maybe you and me
check it out.
Yeah. I would love to. But I'm just curious. Okay, so there may be some people watching who've thought about, wouldn't it be cool to do a haunted house? Well, whatever. So I guess my first question for you is like, when did this idea even enter your mind? Like, hey, why don't we take this? Because it's a couple of acres, right, of attractions and things like that. But did it start out
15,
as 15
acres? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But did it start out as like one thing and then you built out from there? Like, how did all this begin?
Yeah, I started it. So it's on like it's like it is an old farm. The farm was turned into a campground from 1980 to 1984. It was transformed. They put a lot of trees in. It was like a big flat piece of land. Now it's trees and forest everywhere. So it's just been a campground all the way. And we had these hay rides that we used in the summertime. And I thought like one year I was like, why don't we use these and do a haunted hayride? Why don't we try a haunted hayride one year? Cause we close after Labor Day basically, and it's dead. So I was like, So I was like, let me run to the skate park. I think I know some people. I went to the skate park and there were like 25, 30 people there at that time. I talked to this guy and he's like, yeah, it's your lucky day. I work at Screamers in Niagara Falls. We have Screamers in Toronto, but this is Screamers in Niagara Falls and Nightmares. We work there. And this is a tourist area.
What are screamers?
Screamers is basically a small, like, well, in Toronto, I think they have more than one haunted house, but they're like a smaller haunted attraction here in the Falls, down in the. It's kind of like the Las Vegas Strip of
Okay.
Niagara Falls. It's called Clifton Hill, and they got these small haunted houses. You pay $20. You got one actor. You go through the darkness. They scare you. You got bright lights, and then you're out. Right. So we're 8 haunted houses, and we're a hayride. So we've got 120 actors and staff and monsters.
Wow.
So I went to the skate park, and he's like, yeah, all these guys, they work there too. Why don't we all come out? Yeah, we'll come out and we'll check it out. So they came, and we had a meeting with these guys, and we talked about it. They're like, all right, yeah, let's do this. They threw on masks. They would run at that time. It was almost a mile of hayride. Went around the whole park. We actually went around the camping areas, and we pissed off campers that year, like to no end. It was funny. Like we had campers actually going almost like a mutiny. Went to the city hall, and on live TV, we're like, Phil's got to stop doing this. There's zombies pounding on our trailers at night. We're trying to sleep, and they're just like, some of them were even making up stuff just to like try to shut us down. So we went through a lot of growth and growing phases. That year, we had 2,200 people go through.
Wow.
For the hayride, and after that, we went into turning the barn into from a skate park. I was like, okay, let's do a haunted house. So we did half of it was a haunted house, and then the next year we did the whole thing a haunted house. We just kept adding on them. We were like, all right, let's add another section. Let's add a corn maze. And then we just kept putting. Let's put another building up. Let's put another building up. Let's do a graveyard walk. Now we got a bayou. We got like a horror legends area where it's all your favorite horror characters. Right. And there's eight haunted house sections, 3-story barn, all haunted house. It's massive now.
So it's possible if someone is new to this whole thing, if someone is interested in doing a haunt, that they could start small. You could do a small, do one thing, do it small. Is it profitable enough where you can rent out a space and run it and be okay? I mean, I'm just kind of curious on the side of maybe financially.
Financials.
If you let's say somebody comes to you and they go, hey, Phil, I want to do a haunted house, right? Or I want to do a haunted attraction of some kind. What would be, say, the minimum viable product, shall we say? Like, what would be the thing you would say, hey, do this first?
Yeah, I mean, like today it's a little tough, and you got all the, there's a lot of pressures with the economy and stuff like that today. So it makes it even more challenging where your price points are even higher, right? So to start off, the best thing to do would be home haunt. That's what a lot of people start in at. And actually, I do talk to I give a lot of advice to a lot of Canadians that have home haunts that want to get into the Halloween business, and I give them advice. A lot of these guys want to jump up and do what I'm doing right off the bat, but you can't, if you try to, I know someone that did it, someone that worked for us, they went to a speedway and they tried to literally copied everything I was doing. I was like, okay, they're going too big. They don't have an audience. Nobody knows them. They're further away out in the country. They're starting too big. It's not going to work. And people were like, oh, they're going to take your business away. Da, da, aren't you worried? I'm like, I'm not worried at all. Like she basically splintered off and was like, I can do what Phil does. No problem. But she didn't listen to me. I was like, so my advice would be start on a gradient. You start with your home haunt, or create a little set. Do a really, really good set where you can drive in traffic and people come in off the street, and do it as close to free as possible. Use pallets, things like that, and drive in traffic. Like you probably have home haunts. You guys each probably know different home haunts where you see, 2,000-3,000 people a night on the weekend.
I mean, in LA, there's a whole area in the northern part on the other side of the hills that a lot. That's what a lot of people do. They turn their normal, just the house they actually live in or the extra home they have, and they'll do a little home haunt. And I can't remember. No, my friend Josh, who's a friend of the show, they'll hire like 1 or 2 actors, and then they'll just do it at their home, and maybe that's sort of the test to see if that's something that they want to do or something they want to try out. So yeah, because oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's how you started off like that. You got your traffic, you got a feel for it. That's what I would recommend doing.
By traffic, do you mean you have a location where a lot of people are going to see it naturally without, yeah, instead of being out in the middle of the country?
Yeah, location is a big part of it. Generally, when you're in the haunt industry, they'll tell you you want to be within 40 minutes of you. You want to have at least 500,000 people if you're setting up a major haunted attraction, right? So, as you know, the Toronto market actually, how do you set up a big haunted house in the Toronto market, and how do you do this at a costly, and how do you cut your costs and how do you keep it? It's hard because there's real estate and rentals and everything, and square footage is so expensive, So what you can do is find a farm, find a place like that. If someone wanted to do it, it's more expensive now. I would just say, figuring out how to do it step by step, and then finding a location if you want to jump in where you can get your feet in, maybe partner with someone where, in my case, my parents own the park. I didn't have to deal with all the high cost of renting and everything like that. I know, so I told you that one person, they tried to jump in, go too big, too fast. They didn't have an audience. They didn't have enough cost to marketing. So you start on the right scale, you do your, $10, $20 a day Facebook ad, and you can start to build up an audience, from there. Just start with that. And then make sure you find a location where you can potentially expand into, because it's a lot of work. Haunts are a lot of setup. It's a lot of construction. You need carpenters. You need to have a really good carpenter, at least one. And you should have another person that can do labor, that can move stuff around quickly. And you're going to end up doing a lot of stuff yourself, for the first 5 years, and you're going to probably not get sleep, for the first 5 years of it.
When because I'm assuming that the majority of the, if it's a business, the majority of the revenue is going to come in from the end of September to the beginning of November. It's a couple of weekends. Is that accurate?
Majority of the people come in the final weekends of October.
Right.
Some haunts they'll actually do middle October to the end. The problem with that is now you're competing with all the haunted house advertising and Halloween party advertising and horror events that are happening, say in LA or Toronto. Now you're competing, so now your ad cost is going to be a lot higher.
Right.
So I start earlier. It's kind of a better strategy. You kind of get your short tail. You cover your, you start to build up momentum to it. And I'm advertising now in July.
Wow.
I'm hired by mid July. I have all my actors ready to go.
Oh, wow. Okay. I do want to get into the production side, but I think people who love scary things, haunted things, horror, it's not a seasonal thing for them, right? I mean, they like it all year round. So I don't know if that affects, how long you guys are open or whatever, but I'm just kind of curious. Have you guys ever considered being just something that's open, maybe not year round, but, or maybe certain attractions are open year round or something like that?
Yeah. The way, it's funny you say that. I get asked that a lot. That's probably one of the most common questions I get, especially from my staff. My staff always ask me that, hey, you should do this every weekend. So I'll give you my honest answer with that. We basically, and a lot of haunted houses have done this. You'll see some haunts they're open November 1st and 2nd, and some of them will go November 14th. But now if you look at it, you'll notice majority of these big haunts, they've pulled those schedules back and they're not doing that anymore. And if you go on those nights, you're at a fraction of the amount of people. There's people that'll come and they are diehard, but after Halloween, it drops almost straight down the interest. But you do have your niche horror audiences. The way to do it properly is to do specific one night only events, like you do I know Headless Horseman. He's a good friend of mine. He's one of the biggest haunted houses in America and hayrides. It's called Headless Horseman. His name's Michael Juby, probably one of the best people I know. He does this event called Frostbite, and it's right, I think, December, first week of December, and it's one Saturday, and they'll just push all their event people to that one day, and they'll run it for like 3-4 hours, and if that works, and then you can do a Valentine's Day event that I've heard works as well. So you'll do another. So that's how you do it. If you want to do it around the year, you do it on special events. You can even do summertime slasher. So for all your horror fans, you can do slasher. If you got a Friday the 13th coming up in say like June, you can do that. But I wouldn't go crazy like you, because what can happen is you can lose if you don't do it right, and you don't, you can get overzealous about it. You do it and you lose your shirt, and then it's hard to do your normal season. So you got to be real smart about it. And I would say survey it, talk to people about it.
Let's go back to what you're talking about with the actors. How does that even start? How do you get, I mean, is it just like a normal audition? You audition people and say, hey, we're doing a haunt and we need people to learn how to scare. And then how do you train them to be able to be scary?
Yeah. Good question. So I'll basically put out an ad on Facebook or to our existing audience, which is horror based or Halloween. They love haunts. And I'll put out an ad. Hey, we're doing auditions. I'll start it. I start it July 1st now, or first week of July. And we do auditions. We used to do it starting in mid-July. And we would try to get everybody, but now we go all the way through August, and we'll do Sundays. We'll do audition days, and we'll honestly, we get most of the people close to Labor Day, right at the end of August, and then after that, we're filled up, and then we get even more people trying to come in like through the month of September, but we have to tell them, hey, we're ready, we're filled up already. So what you do is you come in, we give a little window of like 3 hours, come meet with our girl, Katie. She does all the hiring. She'll do an interview. She'll make sure you love Halloween, make sure you love horror, you're into it, because some people are like, I just want to do this to get paid and I don't even care. And those people are fine, but they'll lose interest. And if they have a concert coming up, they're going to just not show up on a busy night. They're going to be at a Kiss concert. We get that happening. So we just, that the key is making sure you got people that enjoy what they do. Then you put them into the haunted house, put them in a position without a costume, and you get them to scare you and make a noise, or you give them a one-liner or 2 lines and say this, see how they do. And if they're louder and better, we put them on the hayride. And if they're not so loud, but they're good, we'll put them more close quarters in the haunted house.
I mean, I'll tell you this, one of the scariest haunted houses that I've ever been in was in LA. So they have a hayride out there that's pretty well known in LA.
Hayride.
Yeah, the LA Hayride.
Yeah, I've done it.
Okay, yeah. And then they have those extra haunted houses there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe you went through this one. So because everybody's like, oh, this went to a bunch of these things, and I get scared. I'm easily scared, so I'm not gonna BS anybody. I'm a scaredy cat. But this one was disturbing because most of the other haunted houses or the hayrides, you go in and then there's people stalking around and they go, and then you're like, and then that's about it, right? This one was like, you're in a house and there's no guidance and there's a lot of stuff. So like you'll walk in a room and it's like mannequins and dolls and that. And then what'll happen is you'll walk and it will be someone doing nothing. They'll just be there. And then you realize, like, looking at them, they're not a mannequin. Then it freaks you out. Like, they didn't even like move or say anything. It's just someone sitting there breathing, and it's like weird. And then they would have it where they never do the shock scare. They just follow you. Like you're walking around the house and they start following you. It's really creepy. I was like, that's the one I always remember.
We tell people, we have to tell actors, like, even throughout the night, we got staff walking around, making sure actors don't scream in your face. Don't, don't say, don't say boo. Don't, we have to sometimes remind, because we got 120 actors. Some of them are brand new. We let someone go. Somebody came in and if we catch them, we have to say, hey, you know, because we do orientations and we train all these people. Sometimes we have new people coming in. So that's not scary. Sometimes, like you said, that's the scariest thing is you walk into a room, there's 10 mannequins, and then one starts following you and they're not doing anything or saying anything. They're just walking right behind you, you know. But the honestly, the scariest thing and best thing in the haunted house industry is the chainsaw, bar nothing. That's number one. I don't care what anybody says.
At a Universal City Walk or whatever, the that's again in LA, and they always have the chainsaw people without the the actual thing, but it's always freaky. It's never not freaky.
They come out with they come out with 10 chainsaws. That's why I was telling my staff, I'm like, guys, we're coming out with 10 chainsaws this year. It's always like 10 chainsaws. Why do you want 10? Trust me, 10 chainsaws. Like, well, we have 3. That's isn't that enough? I'm like, no, I bought 5 more chainsaws. So you're putting them on this trail. So I always do that every year. I'm like, all right, we're buying more chainsaws. You can never go wrong with chainsaws.
So on that note, are there certain themes that are just go-to themes? Like if you're going to start a haunt, do you feel like that you should, in the research that I did, they always say like clowns are always a thing, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff. I mean, do you believe in that, or do you just believe like, listen, you just do your theme and stick to it?
Yeah, I have been doing something that works really good over the last 5 years is do some research, find out what the best horror, genre is. Like I've been doing a lot of things that have worked over the years, and I usually like to pilot new things all the time. And the latest thing has been like, hey, let's figure out what the best themes are, and let's kind of see if we can emulate that to a degree with our theme this year, but do it in a creative way, because we've always been, like you said, creative with our theme and not really like, we don't care what's going on. But now we're like, why wouldn't we? Because it's popular. People want that. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it into the mix. Yeah. And we do that. So we'll do, like last year we had, Last of Us was a show that was pretty popular and is crazy, and that was a good series at that time. And so we're like, let's turn our prison into a giant lab, and let's, have this fungal infection coming out of the walls. And you can see in our, some of our promo pieces, you can see some of the masks and the actors that had that, and it looks sick. It was good. So we'll do that. It works really good.
How do you handle all the production design, the setting, the costumes for the actors, all that kind of stuff? Do you have like a whole part of your company that just focuses on that stuff, and if someone's starting out, how would they what's the best way for them to approach all that?
Yeah, I would say you want to have put together a team, like putting people that are good at it, and finding those people is part of the puzzle. Like it's like a giant puzzle, and you just got to, you just start off by clicking a few pieces together, and then you just build your puzzle. Because haunted houses and hayrides, and especially hayrides, that's a whole nother ball game to haunted houses. It's like you got to have a good team, you know what I mean? And you got to find somebody that likes. So to answer that question, you would need, we have a costume and set designer. Her name's Bethany, and she works, 4 or 5 months out of the year on just repairing costumes and then figuring out what the new theme is. She gets my theme in January, and then she starts to kind of brainstorm throughout the winter and come up with different ideas. And we go to a trade show called Trans World in Missouri every year, and see what costumes we want to add to the mix, and we make our own. So we're at the point where we have a full studio now where we can make all this stuff or buy it, which took about 10 years to get to that point.
Wow. So that far ahead. And then,
yeah, it doesn't have to take that long. You could do it shorter. Depends what you focus on. Like if you focused on setting up a studio right from the get-go, you could probably do that. I wouldn't. I would focus on just growing your audience and getting known. That's number one thing. Like anything, is just grow and get known. And because you're opening, people don't know you. Like you can say, you can have, like we had lawn signs, we had ads. We were saying we're the number one scariest attraction from in the early years, but you'd still talk to people that love Halloween and horror, and for the first 5-6 years in our city, people didn't hear about us. They didn't know who we were. They're like, no, I've never heard about you. And we're now, everyone's heard about us, but it took repetition over and over, just like get the message out, advertise, and go through that frustration of why are people not, I'm sure it's the same thing with, I don't know much about podcasts, but I'm sure you might.
I mean, we're working on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you're always, I think in any business endeavor, right? You're always learning, what sharpening the production, but so much of it is, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, when you're talking about marketing, I mean, marketing is so much of this thing. Do you feel like, so you would not subscribe to the idea that the marketing handles itself when it comes to haunts? That you got to put in the money or the effort or the work to really get the word out there. Would that be accurate? And what would you say would be the most effective means to get the word out?
To get the word out for a haunt, or for any, like if you're doing a Halloween event, you want to make sure you want to have the image of being the best or the number one. That's always worked for us. And you got to figure out how to do that. Sometimes you might not be the best. You got Universal in your neighborhood. You got LA Hayride in your neighborhood. How do you do that? So if I was to move to LA right now and I had these guys, I know the 13th floor guys, that's the guys that own LA Hayride. They've got, and they buy up on attractions all around the country. So they're in the same seminars I go to. They're in the same, they walk around, everybody talks to each other. But the way you do it is you got to become the best at something, so you can have the most haunted house in LA. You find this house that's like got this history. So you could say the most haunted, oldest house in LA, and you just come up with that and you just repeat that every year, and then you'll build an audience off of that. And if you got enough space on the property, you're going to want it. You got to be ready to put in a second one, then be ready for that third one.
This is all fascinating, man, because I'll talk about, we kind of were joking, me and Paul, and about different ideas for haunts and stuff like that. And but it got me thinking. I'm like, is that something that I don't know, just I find it fascinating. But what do you think about, okay, so this is kind of a bigger question, and we were talking about Elon earlier. We got this Neuralink or whatever. We got virtual experiences. We have the Apple goggles. We have, Zuck with the glasses and all this stuff. And I'm just curious if you agree with this statement. Is I feel like the more we go into this virtual world, the more reality becomes, automated. Things like these haunted experiences in reality are going to be more desired because so much is going to be an illusion of some kind or virtual thing. Have you thought about how the haunted experience, does it need to change to accommodate that? Or is it one of those things where people are going to want it more because it's not any of these sort of AI experiences?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question. And it's interesting. The whole haunted house industry went through an evolution on this, where I watched when the VR stuff started coming out. A lot of these bigger guys like 13th Floor, the guys that do LA Hayride, they started putting in virtual VR setups where you're going through a haunted escape room in their lobby as you walk in. It's one of the experiences, and then they got rid of it. And then you saw a lot of these guys were doing like virtual reality haunted house walkthroughs where you have an actual room, but there's nothing in the room, but it kind of adds, and it's all kind of set up with the key points that match up with the game. And I've had some really smart owners of haunted attractions around the country, ones from Indianapolis, Tampa, and walked around with them. And they're like, Phil, this is going to replace in a couple of years haunted houses entirely. And I'm like, you know what? That'll never happen. I can tell you. They're like, no, it is. I'm like, it will never happen. I cannot. I see what you mean. I get what you mean. And I think this stuff's awesome. I love it. But there's something different about going somewhere with your friends and you see it, and this is a real person. You can't get that real person experience. It's not the same. I mean, VR is awesome. I've done it. I mean, I think in the future, if it gets really good, where it's like you can't distinguish, you mix this AI that's coming out with runway AI where you can put in a photo and it comes to life. And then some of the technology, I think you're going to have to get to the point where it's like holographic, you know, even then you're going to know it's a hologram though, you know?
There's also there's, and I don't know if this might sound weird. There's a smell, right? There's tactile things, like just going in and there's like the bar, you know, to get into and touching that.
So if you mix it, you do like mixed reality or augmented reality, right?
Yeah. I've seen it. Yeah.
And you have these things like there's right now it's like a speaker, like a subwoofer that you put on your desk, and it's basically smell-o-vision. It's called 4D, and it matches the smells in the games you're playing. If they adapted that for haunted house, where again, like you just have the key points, they're just, rather than being the item that's weird, it's like a green screen, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're just walking around through this haunted house, and you can smell everything. You can touch things, like anything that's meant to be tactile, you can interact with. It just might not look like what it would look like if you took the goggles off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it would ever fully replace it, because again, I think your other senses realize. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's like a sixth sense that we have or something, but I think we realize it's a game.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you can't take that away. That's the thing. You always know you're in a game. You always know you've got goggles on and you're in this experience, you know. With a real live experience, it's kind of like watching your favorite concert, even if it's at that big globe thing in LA. I forgot the name of it.
The Sphere.
Yeah. The Sphere, right? Yeah. You're watching that at home versus being there at, right up front. How do you, like even if you put VR goggles, it'll probably look amazing and probably the best experience ever. But like, you're
going to know they're not playing right in front of you.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not the same. You're not going to feel the bass hitting you and feel the humidity.
I've watched concerts in VR. It's not the same, right?
It's not the same.
It's not the same. So that's the thing. And our growth, like we've been growing over the last 3 years as well. Even this year, I was worried about this year with the economy and what's going on. I'm like, look, I don't know. And I pounded the marketing as well. Like I just was like, we got to have a really, really good show, because people are going to want to save their money this year with the groceries and what's going on, and concerns over the elections and what's happening right now. So I was like, we got to have a really good show. We got to have really good marketing. And so I just combined those things. I was like, if you don't have a good show, people are going to go and be like, I didn't have a good experience last year. And you can lose some of your audience. Or we win. We do really well because we focus on returning customers every year. We want you to come back. So we're going to put a new haunted house in so you can see where our next haunted house is. And that works.
Listen, man, I mean, there's always going to be guys who want to have their girlfriends get scared and they get to be the protector, right? There's always going to be parents, want to give their kids a fun, scary experience or whatever. So I think that there's always going to be it's not just about the environment, the scares and all that. It's about the communal aspect of it. And that's always a lot of fun. Like when you're walking and someone in front of you is getting scared. So you're like, oh shit, something scary is coming up. I'm going to have to get ready for this. And then you're ready for that one, but then there's another one that comes right after it. I agree with you, man. I think there's always going to be something to the real experience. Listen, man, I mean, that went by fast. This has been a great conversation. First of all, we're going to toast you. That's what we do on the show. We toast the goats. You are the goat of
the goat of the haunt.
The goat of the haunt. So here we go. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Appreciate you coming on the show. How can people find out about Haunt Manor and the details for how to get there and all that kind of stuff? And I don't know if you have your own social presence that you want to promote for all this stuff, but how can people find out more about everything we've talked about today?
Yeah, you can find me at Phil Van Kleef. You can go on. I'm on all the social media as well as Haunt Manor, hauntmanor.com. We're Haunt Manor Hayrides basically, so we're on TikTok, Facebook, everything.
Gotcha. Great. Can can people reach out to you somehow, some way as a consultant if they want advice for haunted houses? Would that be just through your socials?
Yeah, you can email me, message me on Facebook, or add me, on anything, like even personally, they can reach out. I always answer back. I love helping people. I love answering questions. So, yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. You gave so much great knowledge, and I'm pumped for Halloween. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm about to go to Atlanta, and we're gonna do it up there. So, with
they
that,
got some good haunted houses there. Yeah, they got some good haunted houses there.
The Netherworld, I think, is
Netherworld. Yeah, you got to go there.
All right,
those guys are big.
I'll try and convince.
Yeah, that's at Stone Mountain.
Right. Yeah. And there's one kind of in the total opposite direction. I forget what that one's called, but I hear good things. But well, great. Well, Fresh, looks like the show has come to a close. What do the people have to do?
You got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to hit the bell, you got to send it to your mom, you got to send it to your aunt, you got to send it to a horror buff, you got to send it
to that ghost in the attic that, might be haunting you. Don't let the ghosts not see this. All right. They get to see it too, So
absolutely. And yeah, fuck you.